Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And my name is Kevin French, publisher of Talk Satellite newsletter. And welcome to this panel discussion, network planning and enhancing customer experience. I'm delighted to moderate this exciting session today, hosted by Integrasys and AVIA, which will address the revolution of automation in the satellite industry, from network planning to enhancing customer experience. The new market demand is focused on complying with the highest SLAs, providing an efficient communications pipe, and being able to manage the network through end-to-end automation, which enhances connectivity, resiliency, availability to remote operations. This webinar will provide insight to success in network planning, which traditionally involves a great amount of time, money, and effort. Efficient network planning is key to network deployment. I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists this morning. And Kingshuk Bazak. Kingshuk is Head of Network Operations and Engineering at Nelco Limited. He is highly results-oriented, dynamic professional with about 20 years experience of rich experience in satellite communications, network operations, systems integrations, IT infrastructure management, data center operations, and team management. Okay, and Michael Kratt. Michael is Managing Director of AVCom, where he started as a junior technician and has worked his way through the business, gained unique insights into the satellite communications industry along the way. Michael has a passion for enhancing his customer experience as he works to deliver innovative, value-driven technology solutions. And of course, Alvaro Sanchez. Alvaro is Integrasys CEO and Marquis of Antella. He studied industrial and computer science engineering in the European University and a master's in sales and marketing at ESIC. Alvaro has worked 10 years at Integrasys, being sales marketing director and succeeding with tangible results in the revenue. Now Alvaro is Integrasys CEO and his main function is to expand the company. Okay, so before we move to the Q&A part of the session, Alvaro would like to share with you a short video to set the scene. Okay, so we'll start now with the Q&A sessions. And if you'd like to ask our our panelists, any questions, this is to the delegates, please use the chat room for your questions there. And I'll try and pick them up as we go along, and we can then ask them in a good orderly conduct fashion. Okay, so question one, I'd like to ask Mr. Kinsuk. There's a huge amount of experience between the three of you, covering a wide area of communications connectivity systems. Looking at the market itself, what trends are you currently seeing For example, are there new networks appearing, established networks expanding, technology upgrades? You know, what's happening out there?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think I'm audible. My voice is clear, Kevin?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So thanks for asking the question, Kevin. I would like to say there are a lot of changes are happening. I mean, if you see globally, the entire value chain of the satellite industry, a lot of innovation are happening. And in last 2 to 3 years, there are a huge amount of changes happen in the satcom industry. See, being it from a satellite, from a ground station, from a terminal, there are a lot of innovations and a lot of changes happening. So few of the changes what I can see is I can see is one of the major thing is the Leo constellation. That is one of the biggest things what is happening globally in the satcom industry. Then a flat panel antenna. That is another things which is a revolutionary changes, which is going to change the satcom industry drastically, and the dynamics changes. And in a network side, if we say there is a one thing which is a very integral part, like the networking part, the SD-WAN technology. What I can see is very much revolutionary, and this going to change the dynamics of the satcom industry put together in a big manner.
That's good. Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, we're seeing in our part of the world quite a lot of consolidation and rationalization of some of the more traditional VSAT networks for land-based customers. So we see quite a few customers have multiple hub technologies spread across multiple satellites, and perhaps some inefficiencies have crept into those networks, and now they're going back to consolidate that and draw those efficiencies out into their operating part of their business. And then additionally to that, we're seeing mobility come into play, as with the flat panel antennas from Kymeta and ThinCom. People are starting to design network segments specifically for those applications. And so that's probably where we're seeing some growth on the new network segment side of things.
That's good. Alvaro?
We are seeing, let's say, with after COVID, we have seen a lot of demand for automation, a lot of demand for remote operations, whether it's at oil rigs, whether it's at platforms, whether it's at mobility scenarios. People need to be connected. This is the only way to communicate within ourselves. We couldn't be in Singapore today, but we were online, and and the world has a little change. So not only in the conference matter, also in our communications industry, in order to deploy networks, it need to be in an automated manner, and it's possible humans. So that's critical, as well as more. We have been require more automation, more API, more cloud, more anytime, anywhere. That's how the industry, in our view, is going a little bit.
Okay. So what would you say, how is current business out there for you all, and for your customers, because it's important those guys are successful as well. Michael?
Yeah, it's actually pretty good out there. I think in the early days of COVID, there was a lot of shock and a bit of paralysis occurred. And so certainly some market segments suffered more than others, but particularly for Australia, New Zealand and the South Pacific, largely things have kept going quite well for us. We've been kind of busier than ever. So that's been a very positive sign. And I think we've learned to adapt to the inability to travel, to continue to build networks for customers, solve problems, increasingly using more digital technologies and automation, network monitoring systems to be able to get those insights where your engineers might not be able to necessarily travel to the site, but you're able to remotely talk somebody through keeping that network going or extending it out to the next step.
Okay. King Shuk?
Practically in India, if I say the business is not really good. The COVID hit the first instance, the first season was really bad. We started recovering, but unfortunately the second wave hit, and still we are many states in India in a alert and lockdown state. So business is not really good in the country. Specifically, few companies, if I can say that, they have cut down their budget. Any new investment, they are trying to reduce their recurring service investment also to cut down the cost. So it's not really good. We hope in the couple of months time, when the situation become normal, it will pick up. That's the current situation now.
Get back to normal. Alvaro?
Hopefully, with a few vaccinations helps Kinsuk. I wish the situations recover very soon. In our view, is going well. We had very nice growth in 2020, thanks to the demand of kind of tools to simplify. We are seeing that in part of the world there is new networks. For example, in oil and gas that had a crisis, they deinstall it and now they are installing again and deploying again. We are seeing mobility scenarios, not in the cruise or in the tourist communications like aircrafts, but in many other sites. We've seen a growth in government networks last year, and as Europe and US are not as close as they used to be, there are a lot of activities in that regard, and we are seeing growth. But the world is living in uncertain situations, and always uncertainty doesn't is not the best time for investments, and there are companies that reduce budgets in that regard. So we need to think on smarter business models for achieving and bridging those challenges that companies has, and that's what we have been doing lately.
Alvaro. So an important ingredient to consider for efficient networks is obviously capacity planning. How best can you make sure the utilization and flexibilities are prime? Kinshuk.
That's a very nice question. Thanks, Kevin, actually. I mean, I really appreciate that question, because this is one of the key ingredient to run a network, especially for a service provider like us. We are one of the leading service provider in India, where we are serving, say, 80,000 plus terminals. And when you plan for such a big, the base, the planning of capacity is such an important thing, where you need to ensure you are not running hand to mouth situation. Same time, you should have a less ideal capacity, because the ideal capacity is a burden to the company, right? But so the planning, compare, if I say currently our entire network is running on a FSS satellite. So planning of capacity on FSS satellite is much more easier as we are moving towards the spot beam or a HTS. Because when you see a geography like India, which any particular satellite on a spot beam satellite getting, I mean, multiple spots, say 8 spot, 10 spot, 12 spots. Now, when my service area is big, I am giving services to the pan and a bigger geography. You need to have the capacity on each spot. Now, you should have a planning in such a way that you are able to serve the customer, and the same time you are not having much ideal bandwidth. So that is very important and key as we go along for HTS scenario. As we are going towards the HTS scenario, we are learning the planning part, and it is very difficult and very key success factor in my opinion.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, at Avcom, fundamentally, we put our customer at the center, and we have to have open and consistent communications with them to find out what are they doing with their networks, what do they need now, what do they need in the future, and we use that as our primary tool to figure out how we're going to design that network for them. Or, all too often I see some organizations too vendor-driven, and that perhaps doesn't extract the maximum amount of value that the customer could have if you knew more about exactly what they wanted to do, what they're having some issues with, and that's one of the great things that that Avcom we can bring. We've got that experience of 40 years out in the field, from a variety of different customers and projects. We can bring that to try and help our customers perhaps fill in the gaps of what they might not even know they need, or that's really the key to success, I think.
That's good. Alvaro, thank you, Michael.
We think that planning is a critical part of the equation, also monitoring and also analyzing. But planning is critical in order to see and to analyze what are you going to buy for the rest of the network times. So it is extremely important for companies that do provide service to plan ahead, and whether it's ACS, whether it's LEO, whether it's MEO, any new outside of the comfort zone, it's important to get extremely well planned, because again, it's kind of new. So that's where we are trying to democratize and to bring the simplicity with a product that is called Big Budget, and in order to enable service providers, satellite operators to design their networks much simpler, whether it's a TV network, whether it's a VSAT network, or any other kind of network, in order to streamline that process for them.
We have a question here for Kingshuk from Francesco Cesara. Can you please explain why you don't want to have prime capacity in your network?
Can you repeat the question?
Can you explain why you don't want to have prime capacity in your network?
It's not a prime capacity. It's about that. I was talking about the ideal capacity, because when I talked about India is a very regulated market. So buying a capacity or making it as an operational or usable, it's take a long time. So when you have a requirement of a capacity, you need to plan in such a way that your capacity you hold in such a way that it can fulfill the requirement, your upcoming requirement or the customer requirement, and same time you cannot have a much ideal capacity. Because in India, when we buy a capacity, we do not have a direct contact with the satellite operator. We have to go via a regulator or the Indian Space and Research Organization, and buying a capacity is a very time consuming process here. So that is the important part. And my intention of what I said is that to both should be consistent, like not a much ideal capacity, and definitely you should not run in a hand to mouth situation also, like your customer comes and you do not have the capacity available.
Yeah, very important. Okay, so large networks, what would you say are the most important issues to consider when in the planning stages? Kingshuk, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So basically, Kevin, for a large network, I think when for an implementation of a large network, the first part is to identify the risk. When you plan for an implementation in a large network, risk identification is a key factor, and you should have a backup plan. Also, in a large project, we do a lot of implementation work with a lot of our partners, vendors. So the back-to-back commitment on the timeline from the vendors or your partners is very important, along with your identification of risk and what I call the timeline planning.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, I'll really echo King Chu's thoughts on that one, that the planning and making sure you've got the logistics right for a large network is one of the biggest challenges. If you get some of the logistics wrong, then you can really see some of your timelines blown out, and you might have capacity available too early or too late, and then either way, it's not a good outcome for the customer. So I would definitely agree that with his comments.
Avara?
I do echo both panelists. Timing is critical. The deployment phase is very, very risky as it requires planning, and planning change with the situations, and especially now with and future we don't absolutely are sure about, and also with weather conditions where a typhoon might come, or a hurricane might come. I remember that once that a customer deployed a 5,000 remotes network, and then a hurricane came. So it is critically important to be able to maintain as soon as you deploy, to be able to maintain remotely. So this way you can at least check which terminals are performing well, which terminals need to revisit, which terminals has mispoint, and you know 100% where you need to go in order to minimize the cost associated with that particular risk.
I agree, Alvaro. On your comments around the environment, it can often be very different where the customer is located compared to where we're located. If I look at Avcom's experience in Australia, a lot of our customers in the South Pacific have an extremely tropical and high rainfall, and therefore you need to choose the right frequency band that's going to work for them. And that might be entirely different compared to where we're located, where the rainfall might be very different. So the environmental factors and making sure that your link budgets and your frequency band and antenna selection match the conditions they're likely to experience in the field, so that ultimately you can deliver the best user experience.
Yeah, that's cool. So how do you comply with your customers' SLAs? Michael?
Sure. Fundamentally, we tried to digitize this as much as possible. So we rely on our network management system to make those measurements. And then we'll record and report those every month to ourselves internally, but also externally to our customers, because ultimately they're the ones that hold us to our word, and we need to be transparent on that. So we use digitization and automation as much as possible. That's such a fantastic tool for us, because we can run reports on whichever parameters we're using in our SLAs. Some customers measure different things, whether it be packet loss or availability, and the automation on that side of things is such a fantastic tool. It really reduces the amount of time it takes and the accuracy of the measurements. So yeah, NMS tools are very, very valuable to us.
Yeah, I also agree with Michael. Digitalization and automation is a key success factor. So we also try to make the processes and the system as much as possible digitized. And there are another part to meet the SLA is to make sure the availability and uptime as per customer expectation. For that, whatever required, proactive monitoring, doing a preventive maintenance on time, and but check the health of your network as per your defined frequency, and you ensure that before even the failure, you come to know some kind of alert or alarm gives you that identification that the system may going to deteriorate or downgraded, or some replacement required, some sort of those kind of a preventive proactive maintenance is very, very important to meet customer SLA, along with automation and digital innovations.
I think that's a really good point, Kingsu. Preventative maintenance is all too often forgotten, and in most of the remote environments where we use SATCOMs, it's pretty difficult, it's pretty harsh out there. So doing those preventative maintenance can make all the difference, and being able to measure in a more granular way the performance of a system, so it's not just on or off. There's degrees in there, so you can start to detect ahead of time. Maybe maybe there's water pooling in the antenna, or there might be some water in the coax cable or something along those lines, and you can get out there and fix that before it becomes a failure or a service kind of issue. So yeah, preventative maintenance is very important.
I fully agree with both panelists. We have been focusing on simplifying the resiliency and the availability of the systems for providing reliable SLA plots and reports in order to automate processes, as well as provide alarms with communication with other systems, with APIs, in order to streamline all this integration into one dashboard that they can utilize, whether it's their own dashboard or whether it's an external tool. So this way we can automate as much as we can for providing a better customer experience, which is at the end what will enable them to grow with more customers, because the customer experience is critical. Otherwise, they will choose another provider, whether it's India, Australia, Pacific Islands, or anywhere in the world. So for us, it's critical that they comply with their SLAs, that they provide the best service they can and systems they can, and they grow. And with them growing, we will grow.
Good. So a growing trend is definitely the forthcoming arrival of more LEO, MEO satellite constellations to join GEO, of course, and also the usage of parabolic or flat panel antennas. What scenarios can we expect to materialize as these systems mature? Kingsuk.
Kevin, that's a very, I can say it's a very intelligent question. So, I will speak about LEO. I'll not talk about talk about MEO, but as we all are anticipating a lot of things about LEO constellations, and in India also we are waiting for LEO going in the next 2 to 3 years time. So in my opinion, the key success factor, there are two parts. The remote terminal antenna is definitely a key factor. But the second factor, what in my opinion, the elevation angle. When you are installing an antenna in a remote, and the satellite elevation angle or the antenna elevation angle, where exactly it follows the satellite, is one of the key success factor for growing or maturing this LEO market. Because there are a lot of obstacles. There are some, as I know, that Telesat constellation required a 20-degree to 180-degree elevation clearance, which is a very wide angle. Now, it may not possible for a city, or maybe in an urban location where you can put the antenna, you will have a 20-degree to 180-degree clearance of elevation angle. So those will be the challenges. We need to understand how those can be fulfilled. And definitely antenna is another key factor. Flat panel antenna will change a lot of things. So in my opinion, that is the key success factor. And definitely for a country like India, regulation where it doesn't permit anything which is globally available. There are a lot of policy and process changes required. Key factor another in India as of now. Anything, any satellite or any, I can say in a technology, the landing right required in the country. So data need to be go through the country. So for LEO constellation, there is a very big antenna form required where you need 12 to 15 antenna, very huge space and all. So that antenna form or the landing right is also another important aspect in concern of regulation, how it allowed and permit.
Michael?
Yeah, it's certainly a very exciting time in the satellite communications industry, with MEO being very well established now through O3B, now SES, and the LEO operators coming think from a customer's perspective, it brings both some great opportunities and probably some warning signs to be aware of. Networks, I think, will get much more complicated in the sense that you will end up with a combination of geostationary and then either MEO or LEO, so that you can best match latency of the network traffic to the application and the user's user experience. So in a sense, from the ground terminal perspective, I think networks will become more complicated, and that needs to be carefully managed because, of course, there's no point adding complication if there isn't any true benefit to the customers. So going forward, I think the hybrid of everything. No one technology offers a true panacea to all the challenges of remote communications, but LEO adds another weapon in the arsenal to help us better serve those customers.
Great, yeah. Alvaro?
I think that LEO brings a huge market for those serving satellite communication companies, and brings a new solution for those utilizing satellite communications, so with lower latency as well as MEO. MEO in the number of satellites, I said more efficient. In the LEO scenario, you require more satellites, which joining with Michael's comment, they are more complex. So there was FSS, HCS, and now LEO and MEO, which brings a new scale of complexity, which leaves a good market for us as we simplify that complexity. And we are excited about LEO. We want LEO to succeed, even if it is not easy. But again, LEO with a manual antenna won't happen. It needs to be as the iPhone is connected to the GSM network. Otherwise, it's not gonna fly. So flat panel antennas are mandatory. Automated access is mandatory. Out-of-band maintenance is mandatory. Otherwise, imagine to do manual roaming once every 20 minutes that you need to do a satellite change. That's not gonna happen. So it needs to be way more automated than it is today, and and that's where we think we can play a critical role for many constellations, whether it's vertically integrated or whether it's partnering with other companies. We have done a lot of work with vertically integrated customers, and we are happy to adapt in that regard.
Thanks very much. Okay, so
I can add a couple of comments. I think I mentioned that it's going to be more complicated, but if we do our job right from the customer's perspective, it shouldn't be any more complicated. In fact, it should be easier. And behind the scenes, I agree with Alvaro, there's a lot we can do to make the different systems work together. SD-WAN is an interesting technology that looks like it's going to be able to add that layer of connectivity between the different types of networks. I guess we'll see how it goes. But if we do our job right, the customer's experience should get better. They shouldn't even see what's happening on the back end. Just as you said with the mobile phone, you don't know when it roams between different cell towers or providers. Even it just does its thing in the background, and that's the trick to the network, is to make it simple for the customer.
I agree with you, Michael, but the service provider like us, the network will be complicated. You cannot go out from the Geo or HTS, so you will have everything available with you. So you'll have a LEO, you'll have a MEO, you'll have a FSS satellite, and some customer may require the connectivity from FSS. Some you have to move to those. So managing that overall will be slightly complex. I mean, as we are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. On the back end, for us, it's going to be way more complicated, much more challenging and interesting. But on the front end, we wanted to make it look simple and straightforward. So yeah, I completely agree with you that on the backside, it's going to be a bit of fun, a few challenges, a few sleepless nights, no doubt, for a lot of engineers out there. But anyway, we'll rise to the challenge.
Very good. Okay, so automation, managing those networks efficiently. How effective are the systems that you're utilizing, and where can they really make this difference for your customers? Michael?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit earlier on, automation and digitization. Our business from a service perspective is relatively new. And so we've adopted a lot of those elements in our networks that gives us the visibility at the customer's end site to make sure that the service is operating in compliance with the SLAs or to manage any degradation. We recently started working on a project with Alvaro and his team and some of the software. I think the control set carrier monitoring software has been extremely helpful to be able to kind of bring multiple networks together and put them on that one dashboard so we can see exactly what's going on and make sure that nothing's being missed, and being able to kind of automate that in the background and have a standardized kind of Ethernet web GUI interface. It's very simple. You can bring engineers in and out if you need to escalate up the various tiers. That's really, really important and makes it a lot easier to scale too, because once you overcome those challenges for one customer or one network, you can replicate that in a bit of a cookie cutter style, if you like.
Yeah. Kinshuk?
So automation is, I think, one of the key success factor going forward. And this is really one of the key requirement for a customer prospect as well as for a service provider like us. So in my opinion, it gives a perfection, efficiency, all the prospects. So we as a service provider, we try to make the processes, internal processes for customer processes as much as possible to automate, and we are keep on doing that. It's a regular process. It is not like one-time things. I mean, things are changing on day-to-day basis, and we are keeping a track, and we are trying to make the process automated as much as possible. And we see the significant benefit when we transfer a process from a manual process to automated process. We can see a significant benefit, and it is giving. Yes, as on today, we may not be 100% automated, or we are in every aspect of operation we are using automation. There are a lot of processes still manual, and we are trying to see, I mean, every day as a personal goal of mine, I'm trying to evaluate whatever is possible can be automated, so it will give it a better performance, or efficiently the operation can run much smoother way.
Alvaro?
Okay, so we are very happy to hear your challenge any other time. Where to automate and build a solution in top of for making those manual processes automated. For us, it is a critical task to automate and simplify, whether it's the design, deployment, maintenance, or SLA certification and interference detection or mitigation, in order to again have a more resilient, a more available, and a happier customer after all. Because when things do work, customers are happy. When things go wrong, there are challenges that you need to solve manually or automated. But at the end of the day, as quicker you support and as quicker you are able to solve the problem, the happier is the customer, and the more loyal is the customer. And it's a win-win situation in that regard. So for us, automation is key.
So, okay, so a question on our old friend interference, always there. What common forms of interference do you experience in today's market? And what are the best options to implement to offer resilience on your network for customers? Kinshuk?
Kevin, I mean, I don't see much changes in the interference. The type of interference are same or similar, what I can say. Yes, we face interference problem, and for a customer or the service provider like us, is very challenging to identify the exact location or the particular terminal or the remote from where the interference is getting generated. It's majorly the L-band interference, which picked up from a cell tower nearby, RF tower, those kind of interference. But yes, this is something is challenge for us. We are facing, we are dependent on the satellite operator sometime to help them to identify the exact location for a large volume where we have some in a network like 20,000 30,000 terminals, and interference like sweeping carrier is uh, generated from a particular remote. To identify that, it's really challenging, but we are managing somehow with the help of satellite operator, and they're very cooperative, and we do not have such system as of now, because this is not a very regular what I called kind of a regular things which required a system driven approach. So we are as of now managing, but going forward we definitely should have some kind of system in place which will help us to identify the location. That's the thought process.
Michael?
Yeah, from an interference perspective, terrestrial interference is probably one of the biggest challenges, particularly with 5G encroaching on C-band spectrum. In Australia, and the South Pacific C-band is it's a critical frequency band to ensure you've got mission critical comms, regardless of the environmental conditions. And yet, increasingly, the spectrum is encroached by terrestrial operators, and that's one of the biggest challenges. We've got filtering technologies kind of at the ground terminal level to try and mitigate that. But of course, as more towers are established and more operators build their networks out, it's an evolving battlefield. So largely to date, we've been able to manage it wherever possible, but back and forward. I mean, Australia has had operators in the 3.5 gig spectrum as far back as 2004. So it's not a new thing, but certainly the volume of 5G and the density of the 5G towers is giving us a lot of issues in C-band. And then aside from that, adjacent satellite interference or just on the space segment side of things, we see some challenges every now and then, and that's quite a difficult thing to identify. You have to go to the satellite operator and try and pinpoint where it's coming from, or if it's another customer of theirs that might be, might have their cross pole not quite right, or they might have some kind of issue where they've got a sweeping carrier that's giving you some packet loss or something like that. So they're the two main types of interference issues we see.
Alvaro?
I'm happy to say that I have it all. No, I'm just kidding. The challenge of pinpointing a remote antenna that is not performing well, whether it's a sweeping carrier, whether it's an ASI, whether it's an L-band that is leaking through the buck. This is we have a system that enables to pinpoint the location of each terminal that is not performing as it should. And regarding the C-band and 5G spectrum, we have a new developing project going on that should be finalized Q4 this year for cleaning any 5G, any terrestrial interference over the satellite signal. So this way, we will be removing that noise, that interference, whether it's terrestrial, whether it's coming through the satellite, in order to keep the communications alive, in order to streamline all these processes, whether there is a congested region of RF within the area, or whether it's the satellite that is being affected. So it's called Clean RF. So it cleans the interference.
Okay. When will that be available, Alvaro?
Q4 this year.
Okay.
Happy to connect you, Alvaro.
Sorry, King Shu, you go ahead.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll happy to connect you, Alvaro.
Thank you, King Suk. As anytime that business is back on track, we are happy to support you, or even now, whenever you have the need, we are happy to provide any solution for the need.
The solution you mentioned, Alvaro, will that be able to solve issues on the remote side as well as the hub side of an antenna? That's quite interesting.
Yes, it can work at the remote side and the hub side, and it is cost effective. It is a very nice solution, and it will be able to clean, whether it's at the hub side or at the remote side, the in the receptor, the interferences, whether it's terrestrial or through satellite. So it will be decomposing the signals and cleaning the dirt part, and you will be just receiving what you should receive.
Sounds fantastic. I'm gonna have to
Thank you.
go offline on that one.
Okay, so customers are becoming ever more demanding. How best can we enhance their needs and requirements? Michael?
It's pretty simple. Just talk to them. You know, sometimes your customer might not necessarily know what they want from a technical perspective, but they know what they expect from an operational perspective. So, you know, as things get more complicated, as there are more and more business applications that use specific protocols, you know, the only way to make sure that the network matches what the customer needs is to talk to them. And sometimes you've got to hear what they're not saying to know, you know, what needs to be done to make the user experience as good as it can be.
I agree with Michael, actually. You know, so hearing customer is one of the key things. I mean, there are different ways to understand customer need, and it's absolutely correct that customers are now becoming more and more demanding. They need, I mean, everything in their toes, like, you know, and as the digitalization and automation things are improving day by day, so customer required, like, you know, transparency, their network to be available, their on a fingertips, everything what they want in a mobile-based application. It should not be a desktop app; it should be a mobile app. So to try to understand customer requirement and the pain area, why they are looking something, and how it's going to help them, and does it going to make a value. And if I can give something to customer, and really it's only benefiting to customer, or it will, you know, reverse way, it will benefit to us also. There are certain things when we give it to customer, it's not only for customer, it help us also. Okay, so I mean, customer is more transparent, visible and everything, then it help both the way. So I think understand customer requirement, understand customer pain, and how it can be benefited to both of us, and keep you know, doing those kind of automation and support customers.
Indeed. Alvaro?
I fully agree with Kinsuka and Michael. Listening to the customer, and we are getting a lot of demands on how software becomes a service, how software becomes an OpEx, and customers are demanding lately this kind of environments, and we're happy to provide now, after building a model for more OpEx oriented than CapEx oriented, as well as we are now providing service from $120. We release a service for a specific little part, but yes, it is a new time to do new business models in order to comply with customer requirements, where we are very happy to do. So yeah, that's our answer.
Okay, so digitization, where is this taking us in the satellite industry, and what does it mean for our customers in the value chain? Michael.
Well, hopefully it's taking us to a place where we can offer better services and you know, better meet their needs. I think we've touched on a few questions now that the benefits of digitization, automation in our industry is well identified, not only for the consumer but from the business operating perspectives. So yeah, it's taking us, if we do it right, it's taking us into a place where we can offer those more complicated networks without making it any more complicated for our customers.
Kingsuk?
I agree with Michael. So it's basically taking us the digitalization, taking the industry towards, for customer, it is more transparent. Customers are getting best, and it's overall as an industry, it's changing a lot. I mean, it's taking to the place where we all thought of, and going towards that direction.
Digitalization for us, it benefits us. Now all the cloud providers are digitalizing for this new upcoming LEO constellations as well as Earth observation. We work with a part of that market on providing software, as we have been providing software for 30 plus years. The software is a little different. Before, you used to need a spectrum analyzer. You don't need it anymore. You have digital IF, so you can actually do quicker, smarter, and anywhere. So for us, it's absolutely an evolution that we are glad to surf the wave and to provide this kind of tools that enable these providers and these new constellations to succeed and to be more cost effective, because otherwise there is not possible to have thousands and thousands of gateways for the thousands of satellites that are coming. So digitalization can bring more cost effective and can enable this kind of business models I was talking about, where software becomes a service and is hosted in the cloud.
Yeah, I think a great example of that, Alvaro, is just what we were talking about with the interference. Traditionally, we've looked at hardware-based solutions, and here you are, talking about a new product that's going to offer essentially a software-based solution to something that I would have not realized you could be solved with software. So, I think that's pretty exciting and a great example of digitization and what it can do for us that we might not even know or realize yet.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I have a couple of questions here from Riaz Lamak, MBC and GVF. Big hello to Riaz there. Okay, the first one's for Kingsuk. In addition to your sizable FSS business, you've already started addressing maritime and aero markets. Where do you see your company in the SATCOMs industry in 3 to 5 years' time? Will your service be beyond India markets? And where do you see Nelco in the LEO ecosystem?
Thanks, Riaz, for asking this question. Definitely, we would, as of now, we are serving within India, and we have a plan to go out of India, and we will go in future. That's in our strategy plan. And but there are a lot of other things which we need to consider before going outside of the country for that particular country's law, landing right, all those regulation we need to consider, which we are currently working on that. Then second part is satellite industry. Definitely, as Nelco is not a technology innovator, they are a service provider. So we bring the best of the technology available in the industry, and we provide the services to the customer. So in that sense, we go with the latest technology, and from traditional FSS, we are moving towards HTS, which we are going to start in very soon, HTS. And we are also in a tie-up with one of the LEO constellation provider. So we are planning to go LEO in next 3 to 5 years, definitely. But it will not only LEO. If I see as an Nelco after 3 to 5 years, it will be mix of all. LEO will be there, HTS will be there, and FSS will also be existing. Hope I am able to answer your query, Riaz.
Michael, will you be opening up any new markets? Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, the big one for us is land-based mobility, using these new flat panel antennas from Kymeta and ThinCom, and no doubt other hardware vendors. We see the ability to connect, not only small devices from IoT type applications, but all the way through to large land-based vehicles such as trains, road trains, buses, coaches, things like that. I think that that's an exciting segment that we see, and that's hopefully what we'll be developing over the next few years.
Okay, Michael. Okay, from Riaz to Alvaro, how does your solution help service providers save operational costs?
Dramatically. We have a return on investment study where, for example, SatMotion Pocket, that is for deployment, is returned with 12 remotes or 3 months. So 12 remotes talking to 80,000 remotes, it's peanuts. I don't know how to say, but in smaller networks, we took the study for 50 remotes networks. It pays itself with just 12 remotes. So it's very, very cost efficient. Also, a new innovation that we have done is a SatMotion API that integrates with the antenna control unit for at-acquire antennas, maritime, flat, aero, or land mobility. And it communicates with the ACU for providing couple, cross-pole, ASI, and P1dB, and auto-commission the modem in order to join the network without a human touch. So we call it no-touch commission. And this pays itself with, if the manual process is 12, we need to do the study, but 5, 6, about that. So it's critically important, the automation. Also, you need to depend on your costs. It is not the same the cost in Norway or in the US than in India or in Australia. It all depends on the cost. So in India might be more than 12 remotes, might be 20 to 50, and in Australia might be 12. But it depends on the cost of the labor, on the cost of the traveling to the remote side, etc. But yeah, it's very, very swift.
Good. Okay, now, so what would you say? Ask each one of you this last question, because we're up on the hour now. So, Kingsuk, what should the delegates who's registered today for this panel, what should their main takeaway be from this discussion regarding network planning and enhancing customers' experience? What advice can you give on this one?
I would just say that a couple of points, like planning is a very important part. As the topic says, if your planning is proper, then execution will happen smoothly. So spend more time on planning, do a proper risk identification, and keep on reviewing. It's not like once you made the plan, just it will be continue, deploy smooth. So keep on reviewing the plan, and as and when it required, do the changes. Capacity planning is very critical for any network, okay, which need more time, more people need to be involved, okay. So different type of mind, different type of thought, with a different set of people, take the ideas from everyone and do the planning. And that is the key for, going forward. So the planning is very important, and that's what I would like to say to all the participants today.
Okay. Michael, what takeaway should we have?
I think the major takeaways need to be around what digitization technologies and software and automation, of course, we can use in our networks to automate things and provide ultimately a better user experience. I think it's important to think outside of the box when it comes to network planning and how to deliver those services, not just do things the way that's been established, you know, in days gone past. Technologies evolve and we need to evolve with them. And you know, software-based architectures offer some really exciting and interesting ways that we can add value to our customers. And of course, planning, you can't go wrong with more planning. If you don't, so I agree exactly there as well.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Alvaro?
So for us, I think that both this summary was excellent. Planning is critical, but also is customer experience. If you plan in a more effective way, you will be able to optimize the customer experience through all the value chain, through all the process of the network, whether it's planning, deployment, and adapt planning, and review, and solve challenges for the customer in order to have a better availability, resiliency, and experience. So that's a summary that I would suggest, and it's exciting times for the industry, with a lot going on, new investment, new technologies, and more software-defined networks. So it's a pleasure to host this webinar, and I appreciate very much, Kevin, your moderation.
Thank you, Alvaro. And thank you to all our participants or our delegates for joining us today. And a big thank you to King Suk, Michael, and Alvaro yourself, and to, of course, our hosts, AVIA and Integrasys. And thanks very much for inviting me as well, Alvaro. I really enjoyed it. And we'll see you soon. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this panel discussion will be available soon online, and you'll be able to download it in time. So thanks very much, everyone. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.